So first off, I want to apologize. I got a space heater going, so the audio might be a little shitty because it's cold in Ohio. Anyways, the Nameless Narcissist here once again. Simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving you the facts about pathological narcissism and the stuff that goes on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And keep in mind, I'm no clinician, so I can only speak to my own experiences and the research I cite. So yesterday I made a post criticizing the term narcissistic supply in terms of the people, right? So when somebody dates somebody, and a lot of channels or people refer to the actual people who are being dated by the narcissist as supply, right? And I have a lot of people criticize me for saying that, so I'm going to clarify what I meant. First of all, the idea of calling somebody else supply, I believe, is dehumanizing towards the people who are being who narcissists are dating, right? I feel like that's just kind of gross, and so I don't like doing that, right? Also, it's a misuse of the term. If I am dating somebody just for self-esteem regulation, they are not the supply. It's what I'm getting from them that's the supply. It's the validation and reassurance, the positive affirmations I'm getting them that is supply. So even in the case that was true, that they were only for self-esteem regulation, it's still not accurate because they are not supply. I don't know how else to phrase this. It's not them. Also, because a lot of people mention this, supply isn't a clinically valid term. The only time it was used was, I forget his name, but the first time it was coined in 1938 was by a guy describing the drive for wealth, and he was referring to a healthy narcissistic libido, not pathological narcissism, because pathological narcissism wasn't coined until 1968, I want to say, by Cohout, something like that. I actually read his book, but I can't fucking pronounce his name, right? Because narcissistic supply isn't a real term. It was popularized by professor of physics, Sam Vaknin. And not to say that Sam Vaknin doesn't sometimes have some insights, but I feel like he presents himself as a professor in psychology when it really isn't. And because I respect self-teaching, right? I'm self-taught, so I can't criticize that, but he does say some buck wild shit sometimes purely, and he generalizes based off his own experiences, when I always make clear that I'm not a professional like he claims to be in terms of psychology, and my experience is not universal. Anyways, but getting more into the meat of this, another reason that I hate when people refer to people who are partners with narcissistic people as supply is because, listen, I'm not going to date somebody because they're giving me self-esteem regulation. That's a waste of my time. If I'm only doing it for self-esteem regulation, they're not my main source of supply. They are being used as a means to get supply from other people, if that's what's going on. If I'm only dating somebody for self-esteem regulation, that's what happens. They're arm candy, so to speak. I am using them to show people, like, look how hot of a girl I can get. Look how cool I am. Be envious of me. And that's why there's been a couple times I have done that, right? And I would have them dress promiscuously so other people will envy them. And if I genuinely want to be with somebody, which is 90% of the time, and I think these are the situations that most people are talking about, is when I'm actually trying to date somebody, it's not because it's for self-esteem regulation. Yes, in the relationship, because I'm so desperate for it, that might predominate the relationship, right? But I am genuinely convinced that I love this person. We're desperate for the love we didn't get as kids. We genuinely think that we love these people. We genuinely think that we have a connection with them, right? Just because the need for self-esteem regulation predominates the relationship doesn't mean that's all that you were to them. And a lot of people might not be ready to hear that, because a lot of people are still they need to hear it. They need to be angry, right? They need to be told that these were just monsters that were dating them. But I think that that's only the first step of healing. I think the steps after that are genuinely understanding that the hurt that you experienced wasn't due to you, that the hurt that you experienced wasn't because these people were monsters, because they were super sick people who didn't know how to get their needs met. I mean, it's kind of baffling to me that, and if I'm being honest, this is just due to pop psychology, and it's due to people misunderstanding narcissism, right? It's bizarre that people view us as such monsters that we can't crave a human connection. I have craved a human connection my entire life. I just haven't known how to get there. I'm constantly feeling like I can't connect to anybody, and I desperately want it. I used to tell my friend when I was younger, how I always felt lonely because I didn't have the words to describe my inability to connect with people. And he was so confused because he was like, you have more friends than anybody. And I still get this to this day. You have more friends than anybody I know. How are you lonely? It's because I can't connect. It's because I can't connect, but I really, really want to. Every day I want to. Narcissists aren't just monsters. We are people who want love. But again, in a relationship, our need for constant affirmation, for constant reassurance might predominate that relationship. I once read a case study, well, no, it wasn't. It was a study called Living with Pathological Narcissism, a quantitative study, where they asked people who live with narcissists to describe the experiences with them, to describe how they acted. And it was super interesting because a lot of them would say things like, yeah, when he's at work, he's like super grandiose, he's going like he's a big guy who's just like super confident, can do whatever the hell he wants. But as soon as he gets home, he is asking for constant reassurance. And he's like basically a pathetic little child because his self-esteem's so fucked up. And at the end of the day, we cannot, like, us being grandiose isn't enough most of the time. We're just kids deep down. And when I was younger, it was a lot less, like my vulnerable traits would be a lot less predominant. I didn't need constant reassurance, right? I would still need like people to admire me, right? And only when I would break down would I need that constant reassurance. Nowadays, it's way more like, I'm way more like that. After like I went through, once my grandiosity was kind of cracked, right? And I feel like even if that didn't happen, once I got to a point in my life where I realized that my grandiose fantasies weren't going to come true, I would have been in the same place. But I just, again, it's just kind of frustrating to me because people are relying on a lot of sources that aren't reliable. I mean, in my last video, I pointed out how like it's a common statistic thrown around that 20% of people in the military are narcissists. And most people, like, especially people who watch these videos, I do not blame you for having these misconceptions at all. Because I can't expect anything more of anybody. Because you go on the internet and there's so much misinformation and then they quote studies, misquoting them. Again, in that study, it was the people who were forced into therapy and treatment that were narcissistic, 20% of them were narcissistic. It wasn't 20% of the military. And also it was purely the Air Force, which I found bizarre, but whatever. I mean, the idea that 20% have a disorder that only 0.5 to like 2% of the population, and also I recently debunked the study saying that up to 6% of the population is narcissistic because that was measuring trait narcissism, not pathological narcissism. But the idea that 0.5 to 2% of the population, a disorder that 2% is the max amount and 20% of the military is like has pathological narcissism, that's insane. That's like on its face, it's so blatantly wrong when you start thinking about it. But I don't blame people for believing it because I believed it for a while. Like you go on these websites and it's like, oh, here's a source to this. Like 20% of narcissists are in the military. In the military, 20% of people are narcissists, right? And then they link a study and you're like, oh, well, that must be true. Like they linked a study and then it's like, oh, wait, they've been misquoting it this entire time. Insane. So I don't blame people for having these misconceptions, but they are misconceptions. The idea that like narcissists, again, the idea that narcissists are like, that we don't want to love. Like that's so dehumanizing to us. And to call people that they do try to love supply is dehumanizing to them and also dehumanizing to us. I don't feel like it's a wrong thing to have issues with that. And again, the term narcissistic supply is just wrong in every degree. And like here's the thing. I need constant affirmation. I need constant reassurance. Hence why I'm willing to use the term self-esteem juice, because I need people to tell me that I'm real. I need them to tell me that I'm doing good. I need them to admire me so I feel real. And I don't have an issue with using that term in that way, but because like it does represent something that I do find kind of real. I mean, it's easier to just kind of describe it as I need people to admire me for self-esteem regulation, because that's what it is. I need people to constantly be telling me that I'm okay. People tell me, reassure me that I'm doing well. But the fact that people rely on that term so much, they view it as so impenetrable as a construct, when as a construct it doesn't exist. Again, it was only used by that one guy, and that was referring to healthy narcissistic libido in his mind. Libido, because that's a concept that doesn't really exist in the literature anymore. Even in people who have clinical experience, they don't use that term. Even in people who just do case studies, they don't use that term. Fuck. I'm very frustrated. I have a lot going on, by the way. Oh my God, is this a relapse? My fucking house almost got foreclosed. Shit. Things are going bad. But still, I make these videos and I source and I cite literature. I want people to understand that. Like, I do this research. I really do. And I do more research than 90% of people do. And I hope people appreciate that. Because who else does that? And like, I love Cluster B Milkshake. I love Spirit Narc. I love Early Morning Barking. They're really great people who relate their own experiences, say what goes on in their head, right? Who the fuck else, though, dives into the literature like I do? And I'm not criticizing any of them, but I want you people to understand when I say these things, that, like this, I'm not pulling it out of my ass. I can cite so many fucking things every moment. Literally, Heal MBD made a video on covert versus overt narcissism, or grandiose and vulnerable narcissism, and some guy like basically said some wrong shit, and Heal MBD was like, oh, well, like, that's not true. Like, I don't know exactly what you're saying. This video kind of debunked that, but here's a source. And I went and cited 2 more sources that were empirical to support what he was saying. Because I have a source for 90%, unless I'm saying this is how I experience it. If I'm saying a generalization about narcissism, it's backed up. It 100% is. So you can say, I have no issue with people saying, well, this is what my narcissist does. But I want you to understand, if I make a generalization, it is like your case might be common in like a minority, right? But the things that I'm saying are the common in the majority, because all narcissists are different, right? It might be fucking 51 to 49%, and the 49% is representative of your case. But the 51% is what I'm saying is backed up by literature. I'm just so sick of people coming at me when I say things like this, because I'm right. Or at least the literature says I'm right, you know? Because it might be outdated. Maybe you guys are right and the literature just hasn't caught up to it. But I'm not pulling shit out of my ass. I just want to make that clear. Anyways, hope you have a good day. If you can't tell, a little frustrated. Take your fucking meds, because I can't afford mine right now.